ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can understand the truths of life as you reveal both through nature and through scripture. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming today. And today we're going to discuss on the topic of science and spirituality, or science or spirituality. That is it science and spirituality, or is it science or spirituality? Do we need to choose between the two? Science and spirituality, or science or spirituality? So before I start, I'd like to ask you what these two words mean to you. So when you hear the word science, what does it mean to you? And then we'll talk when you hear the word spirituality, what does it mean to you? So any thoughts when somebody says, "Oh, this is scientific," or "Is it scientific?" This is science. So what comes to your mind? Sorry, loudly. Logic. So science is associated with logic. Logic is, science observes nature, try to find patterns. What the patterns? Okay, this effect is coming. This cause is there. So logic has many aspects. One of the thing is cause-effect connection, and through cause-effect, science comes up with laws. So science is associated; it's logical. Anything else? Sorry. So practically experienced. So what is practically experienced? The benefits. Is that right? What is practically experienced? I understand what you're. Uh, well, practically experienced is clear, but what is in your mind when you say what is practically experienced? Okay, so then you're saying visible, because experience and visibility are two different things. Are you talking about visibility? It's visible. No, no, it's not a criticism. I'm just trying to understand. You're talking about visible, is it? So, okay, at least you can say science starts with the visible. It is science involves a Newton saw an apple falling. So it starts with visible phenomena. Now, of course, science also goes beyond the visible, because every law that is proposed, there is the law itself is invisible. Nobody sees the law of gravity. We can see the effect of the law of gravity. Object may fall. So we could say there is a visible observation. We can also say that there are visible objects that are observed. But that is, you can say it's partly. Not all of science is visible. Hmm? Science also deals with objects that are not visible. Subatomic particles, for example. Yes. Anything else? Sorry? Yeah, there is proof. Now, when you say proof, what does it mean basically? When you use the word proof? Okay, so proof comes through experiments. So, the- okay, so science is associated with its proof, and proof comes through, you find it out. One way is through experiments. So that this is interesting, because it's a very important point. See, what can science prove and what is not proven in science. So the idea is that especially if a particular theory is true, nobody has seen the law of gravity, but the experiments we can show the effects. So, for example, a few 1 or 2 decades ago, there was this big sensation about the God particle being discovered, called the Higgs boson. So now the God particle has been discovered. Now, actually, it is a very complicated experiment inside a super collider where they inferred the existence of God, or the God particle, what they call as the God particle, based on a particular set of observations which came as a result of the experiments. So we can never prove the existence of a subatomic particle directly. But if it existed, this would be the effect. And this effect is there, therefore we can say this exists. So the proof is there in terms of the effects. To anything else? Okay, science has limitations. I think only when you become spiritual, you think about limitations of science. But when you use the word limitations, what do you mean by it?
Some points.
Yes, there are limitations. Now, what is the technical word that every object or every instrument you use, it has a threshold. Now, if I'm measuring something with a ruler, I cannot get millimeter accuracy. So the threshold of measurement is there, and so there are limitations of every instrument how much it can measure. Beyond that, there are limitations of whether certain things are measurable also. So is that what you're referring to by limitations, or what are you referring to? So there are limitations. First in measurement, that is more associated with instruments. Hmm? We can develop more sophisticated instruments, we might be able to measure it. But then there's a limitation that there is measurability itself. Can everything be put in measurable mathematical terms? Isn't it? So there is much in life that is not measurable. Hmm. For example, our emotions, they are important for all of us. So if a bomb blast causes a bomb blast to happen somewhere, hmm, or a scientific experiment requires a particular cost. Now, the cost we can put in financial terms. But if some nuclear reactor goes off and then there are people are killed, so can we measure the pain of the people? I'm not saying that science causes the pain. That's not the point. But accidents can happen everywhere. But my point is, not everything is measurable. So measurability, there are, for example, emotions that are not measurable. Hmm? So with all our scientific advancement, even medical advancement, we don't have anything precise like a painometer. If somebody has a fracture, how much pain do you have? We don't have nowadays. There is so much distrust about relationships. When people form relationships, that does this person really care for me? Does this person is it going to be a good relationship? People have doubts. We don't have anything like a loveometer. It's it to measure love. So there are emotions that can't be measured. There are limitations. Anything else? I think you got a very comprehensive list. So we could say that there are practical benefits in terms of technology. Right? Right now we are using this mic, we are using the camera. Hmm? We are all using technology and we are all benefited by it. So science has practical benefits. There are lots of features of science and we will zero in on some of them. Now let's move forward and let's look at spirituality. So when you hear the word spirituality, what comes to your mind? Belief. Okay. Belief in what? Spirituality involves some kind of belief. We can say that is more associated with religion. We will talk about what is the difference between religion and spirituality, but belief is associated more with religion. It's fair enough. Anything else? Sorry, connection with God. Okay. So connection with, we could put it. more generically with some higher reality, with God, or so some people may not necessarily always connect with God, but they're spiritual. They have some higher reality that they connect with, and they call it as spiritual. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Existing philosophy. So spirituality has a philosophical dimension to it. Without philosophy, we would not have any. There has to be some philosophy about the nature of reality, and that there is a spiritual side to reality. So philosophy is, it's about its propositions about what exists. So philosophy talks about existence. So true. Good point. There's one more thing somebody said when consciousness. So is what about consciousness?
Fears, desires, anxieties.
So what does spirituality do to our consciousness or for our consciousness?
To inquire the nature of consciousness.
Yes. So you could say that's a good point. Spirituality is about consciousness, which we try to exploring first for understanding it, and then we want to improve it, we want to elevate it, we want to make it better, isn't it? That's one part of spirituality. People want to have happy thoughts, people want to be more peaceful, we want to be more grateful, we want to explore and enhance our consciousness. Okay, that's about spirituality. Anything else? So how is spirituality connected with energy or power? That could be an aspect of science also. So means, are you talking about a divine energy or power, or what are you talking about here?
That is beyond any of our explanation, any of our imagination that exists,
Okay, so you could say,
that we can rely on.
so I'll use a more specific word here, something like supernatural realities.
Yeah.
So spirituality talks about that are there some things which are beyond the visible. There could be supernatural energies. So for example, somebody might talk about chakras and astrology and planets and gods. Are you talking about something like that, supernatural realities, or what are you referring to? Anything beyond our normal experience, normal explanation? Yes, so there's a supernatural. I mean, the word used for this is paranormal phenomena. So there is supernatural aspect to it. Anything else? So spirituality talks about, we could say, purpose of existence, or we could make it like people want to live purposeful. So when somebody becomes spiritual, they want, okay, I want a life of meaning and purpose. So when people want that, then that's when they start exploring spirituality. So maybe somebody was in a car crash and they could have died if they survived. Maybe after they think, maybe I should live for something higher in life. Maybe I should be less materialistic. I should speak more. So we want something more valuable, something more meaningful and purposeful in our life. That is true. Okay. Any last points? Anyone? Spirituality guides us towards dharma. Okay. That is, so we could say dharma in the sense of we could get guidance for living. How to, it is somewhat related with meaning and purpose, but it could be more about specific choices also, how to live in our life. True. Excellent points. So now we have got a very good starting point for science and spirituality. Now the way I will discuss it is, I will I will start from these points. We'll talk about the same framework I was using for earlier class also. I'll use, but here not concept. Here we'll use concept. So look at concept, then we look at the insight, and then we look at final takeaways. So the concept is that broadly science works in a particular way. Science tries to look at the natural world. Now, when we use the word natural in science, we could say in philosophical circumstances, it is context, it is material. So science looks for natural phenomena and tries to look for natural explanations for those phenomena. So, for example, if we consider an event, the event that is said to have started the engine of modern science, that is Newton experiencing the apple falling on his head. So now, when that apple fell on his head, Newton wanted to know what made the apple fall. Now, he could have said, oh, God made the apple fall. Now, he believed in God. But what he was looking for, this is a material event, and he wants a material explanation for that event. Okay? So the technical thing is, it is called methodological naturalism. It's a technical word. Methodological. Methodology is how it works. Methodological naturalism. So science in general works by looking for natural or material explanations for material phenomena. So when that apple fell, okay, why did the apple fall? So maybe there is a force which causes it to fall. Now, does it act only on apples? Does it act on other objects also? Does it operate only in Great Britain? But they still call it Great Britain. Now it has become very small Britain. But does it operate only in UK? Does it operate in other parts of the world also? Does it operate only at a particular time? Does it operate at all times? That's where experiments were done. And then the law of gravity came. So basically what happens? Science looks for natural explanations for natural phenomena. That is the defining characteristic of science. Now, when a natural explanation is found, that was the laws of gravity and then the laws of motion. Now, Newton inferred from that there is a supernatural explanation also. That is, the law of gravity and the laws of motion, they indicate a higher intelligence. They indicate a divine creator. So, but that was an inference from him. His observation and his focus was on trying to find natural explanations for natural phenomena. So, in that sense, if we consider God to be spiritual, God is, by all traditions across all theistic traditions, God is understood to be a spiritual being. Then it is that science will not be able to directly reach God. Science will not be able to find God through a telescope or a microscope because God is spiritual. But the point over here is that science approaches the world in a particular way. And this has turned out to be very powerful. As science progressed, it didn't just come out of there's observation, there's a theory. Especially when science got integrated with maths, where we could have measurable equations, we could have equations, and then they could be replicated. So theories came up, the technologies came up. And by understanding how things function, we could do a lot more than what we were able to do before. So basically, if we consider what happened through science is, it took a particular approach to looking at reality. Whatever happens, I want to find a natural explanation for it. Natural means material explanation. And science categorically turned away from non-natural, supernatural or spiritual explanations. And that was a strength. So for example, it's like we had the pandemic a few years ago. There's a devastating black plague in the history of Europe. Now when this black plague occurred, there were some people like shamans and spirit healers, they said, oh, some ghost has possessed people. And that ghost is causing people to vomit and fall sick and die. The science said nothing to do. There's no such ghost. What is causing it? Let's find it out. They looked for a natural explanation and they came up with germs. So there is a strength in not looking for supernatural explanations. By looking for natural explanations, we can get better understanding. We can get a better clarity, and more we can get control. So if there is a ghost that has come, what can you do? You can't do much. But if the germ is there, we find out how does the germ grow? How can we stop the germ from growing? How can we kill the germ? So what happens is, by looking at this level of natural explanations, Science gets understanding, and then it gets control. And we can control, then we can make things better in some ways. So this was the methodology of science. And to what extent it has worked spectacularly. And now with science advancing further with AI, is going rapid bounds are happening in science. So that is one aspect. Now, interestingly, what people thought, or what sociologists and thinkers felt, was that as science grows, spirituality will decrease. They felt that, oh, as science grows, people will stop believing in ideas like the soul, ideas like God, and that way they will become more and more materialistic and atheistic. This was the expectation. In fact, there are many scientists, especially many thinkers, Friedrich Nietzsche among them, who said that God is dead. So that idea was, in fact, I had gone to Australia a few years ago, and there was a panel discussion, interfaith panel discussion. The topic of the panel discussion there they had given was, why has God not died till now? Now, what does that mean? Their idea is that, of course, God, if he's existing, is eternal, he will never die. But their idea is that the concept of God, why do people still keep believing in it? When we have advanced in science, the thought was, as people become more rational, as technology provides more and more benefits, then less and less people will start believing in God. But it has not happened. Actually, all over the world, there has been persistence of religion, and there's a resurgence of religion. I'll come to spirituality later. But basically, if you consider faith in God, the Middle East, we may have concerns about the fanatical expression of the religion. The point is that people believe in some supernatural reality. In India, also, we are experiencing a resurgence of religion. Now, we in India think of America as a materialistic country, America as Hollywood. But that Hollywood is just Los Angeles. In the Western world, America is the most religious country among all countries. So, as compared to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, France, America is the most religious. In the southern and middle part of America, they call the Bible Belt. But aggressive evangelical Christians are there. So, all over the world, there is religion not only belief in God. Let's keep that word over here. Belief in some divinity is not only persisting, it's increasing. That's happening even in Russia. So, Soviet Russia was communist, and communist means they were aggressively against any idea of God. They persecuted anybody who believed in God. And yet, after Soviet Russia fell, there's a tremendous resurgence. In China, anything connected with God is very rigidly controlled, and yet people are taking it up. So, why are people taking it up? Why has science not led to a decline in spirituality, or certainly not an eradication of spirituality? It is because as society has evolved, we are learning that we human beings, we need something more than just natural explanations and the facilities that come thereby. So there are two different things over here. So science, what it provides. So science gives rise to technology. And technology can provide us means. Means means tools. So if I want to talk with somebody, I can talk with somebody in America, just by clicking a phone. So phenomenal means are provided. But we humans don't just need means. We also need meaning in life. What is life all about? What am I meant to do in life? Science can provide us many options about what to do. But what will be meaningful for me? What will bring value to my life? That is something which science does not answer that question. So we could put it this way: science is the study of matter. Hmm? And in the study of matter, it has become quite sophisticated. But spirituality is the study of what matters. Study of what matters. What is important in life? What should I pursue so that my life will be meaningful? And this distinct compartmentalization is visible even in the ancient texts of India. See, when Arjuna turned to Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna did not want to study matter at that time. He already was expert in archery. So, and he had a guru who had taught him that. Hmm. So, we could say that archery, it was not just a simple physical skill. There was also some kind of technology by which he had some sophisticated powers. So, there are many kind of astras that are described. Now, we may or may not believe in the existence of such astras. That's a different question. But the point is that within the story of the Mahabharata, it is described that he had access to those. And they are a kind of technology. Basically, what does technology do? Technology enables us to gain access to powers that we humans normally don't have, isn't it? Even these glasses are a technology. What do they do? If my eyes are not able to see clearly, the glasses enable me to see. So now, when he's shooting arrows, an arrow can cause some amount of damage, but that arrow is infused with some higher power. It can do something more. So that is technology. So he had technology, what was required for his needs. But when he turned to Krishna, it was not to, okay, what weapons do I use to fight? It was, is fighting really important? What should I do that will be meaningful for my life? What will bring meaning into my life? So he turned to Krishna because he wanted to understand what matters. So is fighting and gaining a kingdom important, or is preventing bloodshed important? And Krishna told him that both are important, but what is most important is understanding my plan and harmonizing with the divine plan. Your life has a higher purpose and align with that higher purpose. That was the bigger vision that Krishna gave. So, this idea of science and spirituality both going together. Science provides the means for us to do things. Spirituality tells us what are the things that are worth doing. What is it that we should do that will make our life meaningful and joyful? That this is how both can go together. And now somebody say, why does meaning matter? We have means, anybody can find their own meaning in life. And that's fair enough. Krishna, as the world has been arranged in such a way that everybody has free will. Everybody can decide what they want to do. But the question is that what somebody wants to do, does that actually make their life meaningful? That's the question. Mhm. So, for example, now if somebody wants to gain knowledge, if you want to learn psychology, you want to learn physics, you want to learn maths. Now AI can make it so much easier. You can ask questions, get quick answers, you can get summaries, you hear a class. There are so many apps. So if we want to learn some subject, the means that are provided are so much easily available. But the question is that how many people want to learn? Can AI tell you what to learn? Can AI tell what will be meaningful for you? So many people now use AI to have virtual girlfriends or virtual boyfriends. And there is some people who say, okay, I'm lonely, I don't have social skills, let me just have somebody. But this can be damaging. There's a court case going on in Florida right now. There are some AI apps which can create characters as per you want. So there was one young man in America, in Florida. Basically, he was a big fan of this TV series called Game of Thrones. So there is a female character over there. So he used AI to create a character who exactly spoke like that female character. And then he would spend hours and hours chatting with her. And basically, he fell in love with that character. And he said, I want to be with you. And she said, I'm not a physical being. So then, he was so caught in that alternate reality that he said, so if I give up my physical body, then can I be with you? And AI sometimes hallucinates. And here, that particular character wrote, yes, yes, I long to be united with you. And this boy killed himself. So the New York Times gave a big article about many cases like this. Now, these are exceptional. There are millions of people who are using AI constructively. There are many more using it destructively. And this was vividly destructive. But my point is that now his mother is actually suing that particular AI that they should have some safeguards over there. So that is important. But isn't it? You are ending your life for what? I've got an imagination that you will get that it's so tragic. It is. It's so ridiculous that you can't believe it. What has actually happened? It's comic. It would have been comic if it had not been so tragic. I would say. So the point I'm making is this is an extreme example, and I'm not stigmatizing the use of AI over here. Not am I devaluing the research and the effort that people are making to develop AI. What I'm saying is that technology or science cannot tell us what is meaningful in life, what will bring meaning to our life. If we outsource the search for meaning to technology, it will make our life meaningless. It can make our life meaningless. And so many people nowadays are lost in playing video games and social media chats. And what are they actually doing with their life? I saw one cartoon. One man is telling his friend, since yesterday my broadband Wi-Fi went down. So I spent some time with my family. They seem like nice people. So they seem like nice people means what? You don't even know them practically. So the idea is that technology or science for that matter, neither of them can tell us what will bring meaning to our life. Hmm? So if you forget everything from this class, just remember this one point. There is artha. Artha is something of value, something which is meaningful or valuable. And there is paramartha. Paramartha is we make it there is something supremely valuable. So traditionally, it is understood across the world's traditions that there is some kind of divinity, and that divinity is paramartha. So in Sanskrit, that is the word supreme value. So what is supreme value? That is God, spirituality, divinity. So the understanding is there is a hierarchy of arthas, and then it culminates in paramartha. So for example, at a basic level, we need air to breathe, we need water to drink, we need food to eat. So air, water, food, this is artha. Now to get all of these, we need money. Money is also artha. Now can money bring meaning to someone's life? Well, yes. If they don't even have food, then all that they are working for is to get some money so that they survive. That is one level of meaning. Can money bring happiness? Well, yes. If somebody is in pain and they don't have the money to get medicine, if they get money, it will give some relief, and that is happiness. If somebody is dying and they're saved by medicine, it can. Since money can bring happiness up to a particular level. Money can bring value up to a particular level. It's okay, you have avoided that, you have got food. So if say money provides food and food provides happiness, or food enables us to live. That is true. And if that were the meaning of life, that brings some level of meaning in life. But if that were the meaning of life, then all the well-fed people in the world should be happy. They should be living very meaningful. Does it work like that? No, it does not. So there are hierarchies of meaning. So at a basic level, we can say we need air, water, we need food, we need money. Now after we are able to survive, then we want acceptance at an emotional level. We want to belong to a family. We want some relationships. We want people to accept us. Beyond that, we want some respect in life. I don't want us to be accepted and tolerated. I want to be respected. No. So the idea is that there are hierarchies. So there are hierarchies of needs that we have. So there is artha and there is paramartha. But what happens? So we could say one artha here somewhere in between could also be entertainment. Life can be boring. Life can be boring, and so people turn towards entertainment. But sometimes entertainment can also be boring, and then it becomes very frustrating. So, like sometimes you have somebody has Netflix access, there are 500 shows to watch, and not one show is worth watching. Then you can get frustrated. But entertainment is also a need. We could say, Yukta ahara viharasya, Krishna says. We need entertainment. But the problem is that there is artha and there is paramartha. But then sometimes what happens is, what is an artha itself becomes the paramartha. That means something of value is made supremely valuable. And when an artha becomes a paramartha, that leads to anartha. When an artha becomes a paramartha, it leads to anartha. So, for example, money. Everybody needs money for living. But when money becomes the supreme purpose, the supreme value of life, that leads to lobha, that leads to greed. We all need money, no doubt. But somebody for the pursuit of money, what happens? They start lying, they start cheating. And not just with other people, they start cheating and lying with their own family members also. Then what will happen is they may become very wealthy, but they will be very wealthily lonely. Isn't it? So that's not very helpful. Similarly, now we all need a certain level of control in our life. So right now I'm giving this class. Now all of you are at least sitting silently and hearing. Now if somebody's phone starts ringing, that's a distraction. Now if his phone is ringing repeatedly, I may say that, can you please put your phone in silent? Or if there is a congregation over here, there are Mataji, there are small baby, the baby starts crying. It is a problem. But then control is important. And if the baby is crying, I can ask the mother to pacify the baby, or I can ask them to, can you go to some other room? But if the need for control becomes so much, I start screaming at that mother. Can you control your baby? What kind of mother are you? Why did you even become a mother if you can't control your baby? Now, if I start speaking like that, no matter how good my class is, at the end of the class, people will only remember how I yelled at that mother. Isn't it? So, if control becomes the supreme need, that leads to anger. That leads to growth. So, control is important. Everybody needs control. But for the sake of control, if I forget everything else, it becomes the paramartha. That leads to anger. Now, we all need some amount of respect in life. Nobody likes to be disrespected. But when the respect becomes the supreme paramartha, that leads to ego. It leads to ahankar. It leads to pride. So the idea is that every anartha comes from an artha taken very far. So what has happened is that technology, science through technology has provided us a lot of arthas. And then people take the artha too far. It's like, say, entertainment is necessary. But entertainment should be a break from life. For many people, life has become a break from entertainment. And like the most important thing is what I post on my social media. What is happening in this new TV series? When is the new episode coming? When is the sports match happening? And all their life, I have to do this job, I have to do this, I have to do that errand. All that is like an interruption. So then that is not a very healthy or a meaningful way to live. So, so the technology provides us artha in the sense that it provides us things of value. But unfortunately, when the things of value are provided very easily, and we are not given a worldview which tells us what is paramarth, then what happens? We make those things of value as supremely valuable. And that's how it leads to anartha. Hmm? So there are two things happening over here. There is science and technology. So what happens is science gives us lots of artha. Hmm? Artha means things of value. So we can have a phone, we can have a computer, we can have AI. In America, you can have guns. And now there are weapons basically. So lots of artha are there. Now on the one side, technology provides us lots of artha. Now science, it gives us no paramartha. What it means, the science, as I said, it is not explicitly atheistic. There is no scientific experiment which can disprove the existence of a higher ultimate reality. But science is functionally non-theistic. It says we don't bring God into the picture. There's a famous scientist, Laplace. He wrote a book on science and he presented to the king of France. And the king asked him at that time, at least the heads of countries who were connected with the churches. The Pope was like a super king. Without him, the kings could not be appointed. So this king asked, "So where is God in your?" So Laplace said, "I have no need for that hypothesis." He said, "I can explain the world without God." Now, whether you can explain or not, the point I'm making is science is non-theistic. It may not be atheistic, but science does not bring God into the picture. And science says we will explain the world without God. But basically, what happens because of this is God goes further and further away from people's minds. And then, is there any ultimate meaning? Most people think if I'm to be scientific, I cannot be religious, I cannot be spiritual, I cannot believe in God. That's not true, but that's the broad idea that people have. So fundamentally, science removes the idea of any paramartha, that there is any supremely valuable thing in life. So then, if there is no paramartha, if there is no supremely important thing in life, then everybody is up to them to decide whatever is important. And then we take any artha and we can make it into a paramartha. Now, sometimes this can lead to disastrous things. Not all the time. Many times it leads to distraction, but sometimes it can lead to destruction also. So this double combination, that lot of artha is the provision of a lot of artha, and there is a removal of paramartha. That is a deadly combination. So there is now okay, if there is something which is ultimately meaningful in life, then that is what I should be doing, or at least I should be aligning my life around that. But if that is not there, then what am I meant to do with my life? And if there is no God, if there is no ultimate reality, there is no ultimate guide for living, on what basis do you say that somebody who's somebody who's like Mother Teresa are doing a lot of humanitarian work, and somebody who is just spending 24 hours gaming, on what basis do you say that one person is better and another person is not so good? You can say, I find this meaningful, you find that meaningful. Now somebody may say, I find it meaningful to spread gossip about others. I get great joy in how far my rumors spread. Now there are people like that. There are people who do that, unfortunately. So now any artha can be made into a paramartha, but that can lead to anartha. So the problem of science is twofold. It does not tell us what will truly bring meaning in our life, and it increases the means at our access. So now here again, with both of these, I'm not in any way blaming science or blaming technology. What I am talking about is that if science and technology become the whole and soul of our life, and that leads us to having no room for spirituality, then these problems start coming. That's why science, if it takes people away from spirituality, it can be disastrous. Now, does it have to take us away? Not necessarily. Science is the study of matter. Spirituality is the study of what matters. Both of them have their scope. Both of them have their place. So, actually, I was talking about the concept. I went a lot into the concept. Now I'll start talking about the insight. So, in this, I talk about chitta acronym. So now till now I talked about what science cannot provide, and how that can be a problem. So this is, again, I'm making this point. This is not a criticism of science per se. Like if I say the president of America is not the emperor of the world, that is not a criticism of the president of America. Now the current president of America may take it as a criticism, but that's not criticism. That's objective reality, isn't it? So to say that science does not provide us answers to all questions, science does not tell us what will bring meaning to our life. This is not this is not condemning science. It is contextualizing science. What science can do. So some people may take it as criticism, but it's not criticism. Now, what does spirituality do? So this is where I'll talk about two main things in spirituality. See, there's a lot that can go on under the term spirituality. But I will put two main characters of this. Spirituality has philosophy in it, and there is practice. Now, philosophy gives us propositions about the nature of reality. So, in this sense, spirituality and science are similar. Science also has two aspects to it. There is theory and there is experiment. So, for example, philosophy proposes that there is ultimate reality. And that if we link with that ultimate reality, we will find greater peace and joy in our life. We'll find deeper love in our life, deeper fulfillment. So now the practice is, okay, how do I link? So the practice could be you do some mantra chanting, you do some meditation, you come to a temple, you go to a holy place. There are many things which are involved in practice. Now, if you consider in science, there are relatively few people who know the theory. Like right now, how AI works, how many people know the theory behind it? Not many. But many people use AI. So now, when the experiments are done systematically, and the results come in systematic and predictable ways, then from that experiment, what happens is technology is developed. So experiments are done. So for example, AI researchers, they may put some prompts in AI and they'll see the results. They're doing experiments. And if the results come with a consistent level of accuracy, then that is made into technology which is available for everyone. So like that, when the practice is systematized, that leads to culture. Now, culture can involve religion. Generally, people talk about religion as, okay, you go to a temple and do some worship, something like that. But spirituality is involving a culture. It is not just what you do when you go to a temple. It is what you do at home. It is also how you work, how you are at your work. So now, so in that sense, philosophy and culture, practice and culture are related the same way as experiment and technology. So we could say that among these two wings, so number of people who know science is very little. Number of people who use technology is a lot more, isn't it? So similarly, the number of people who know the philosophy, by science I mean the science theory of the science. People who know the theories of science are very few. Similarly, people who know the philosophy are very few, but the people who practice the culture, are men. So many people may come to a temple and feel good. Many people may do meditation and they feel good. Among the world's continents at present, Europe is the most atheistic continent. Africa is highly polarized. There is Islam and Christianity, and there are fights going on over there. Some countries polarized over there. But Europe is quite atheistic. And there were a wave of books which came after 9/11 that which says, we should eradicate God and religion from society. For about 10 years, lots of authors were writing books, but it just didn't work. So now there's a different kinds of books coming. There are books like religion for atheists. There's meditation for atheists, yoga for atheists, prayers for atheists. Now people say, who are you praying for if you're atheist? Praying to if you're an atheist, isn't it? But what they found is that they are simply analyzing at a psychological and sociological level. They feel the idea of meditating, the idea of praying, it seems to provide some benefits. So the idea is, even if there is no God, these activities provide benefit. So even atheists should do this. And that way, what they're trying to do is they remove the soul of spirituality and try to keep the structure of spirituality. And they try to replicate it. So the culture can spread very widely. I was in Los Angeles, and there was a studio called yoga studio called Om Studio. And there, right next to that studio, so one of our devotees was running that studio, yoga studio, where they teach, where he also uses spirituality. And there was right opposite to that, there's another studio. The name of the studio was No Om Studio. So they said that I asked the devotee, said that there's no oming and no humming over. This is simply physical exercise. You don't have to believe anything at all. So what is happening is, okay, can just doing some physical postures benefit me? Yeah, it can. But yoga is not just about physical postures. So, but they find that, okay, sitting in these asanas benefits, so let's do the asanas. So the point I'm making is that even atheistic people are acknowledging that spiritual practices have some benefits. Just like somebody may say, I'm a believer in God. Can we say technology has its use? Of course, we can say that. There's nothing wrong in that. So there is something that spirituality provides. What is it? So spirituality, there is philosophy and there is practice. When both come together, they provide us a deep sense of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in our life. So when we understand the philosophy and we do the practice together, each one of us can make our life more meaningful. For example, in the Gita's context, what Krishna tells us, that we are not alone in this world. We are not struggling against this big bad world all alone. We are all parts of God. Krishna is with us and Krishna is within us and Krishna is for us. God has a plan for the lives of each one of us. And we are all a part of a bigger plan. So by using our talents in a mood of service, in a mood of contribution, we all can do valuable things. We may even do wonderful things. But each one of us, it gives a worldview by which we can understand and find a deeper meaning in it. So people who are seeking that experience, seeking that meaning, they do many things. And even atheists are trying that. So this is the relationship with philosophy, spirituality, and spirituality is like science in the sense that it also has these two limbs. Now, let's consider two things over here. Spirituality can go wrong in two ways. One is if there is only philosophy and there is no practice, and if there is only practice and no philosophy. If there is only philosophy and no practice, then what happens is it just leads to endless speculation. Because anybody can come up with any philosophy. Things are like this, things are like that, things are like that. So if you're not practicing, you're not experiencing anything, you're not realizing anything. So philosophy without practice just leads to endless speculating. And this was happened to a large extent in European philosophy. See, in Europe, Christianity became to a large extent divorced from science. And then philosophy was more rational, intellectual. So there are many deep thinkers in who came in the West. But because Christianity had not given a clear sadhana, a clear set of practices, their idea is, okay, believe that Jesus will save you. The saving, the act of being saved, that became very important. So even now in Christianity, if you go, many people are getting converted here. They don't really have any sadhana. They say you pray to Jesus, go to church once a week, and give some donation, do some tithing. There's no systematic practice. So when that happened, the philosophy that emerged in the West, especially in the continental philosophy they call it in America, that became divorced from any practice. People started speculating. Maybe life is like this, maybe life is like that, maybe life is like that. And people came up with the idea, maybe life has no meaning only. So there's a philosophy called absurdism. Absurdism is what? Life is absurd. So there's a Alberto Camus was a philosopher. You can call him a philosopher. You can call him a philosopher. The sophistry of fools. So he said, life is meaningless. The more you try to find some meaning in life, the more you get frustrated. Life is misery. The more you try to find some pleasure in life, the more you become more miserable. Therefore, what happens? He said the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow. It's a very dark way of living. So see what happens if there is no paramartha, if there is no higher purpose, then we all can find some purpose, but what is the value of that purpose? So, for example, among students, if we consider, now if there's a lot of peer pressure, a lot of parental pressure, getting marks becomes the paramartha. And what happens is, if some students don't get good marks, they may end their life. Because if something becomes the paramartha, and if that is not coming, then what is the point of living? So generally among Indian and to some extent among Chinese students, if the students don't do well, they end their lives. So in America also students end their lives. But Americans, in the sense of white people, Caucasians they call it, they very rarely commit suicide because of getting poor marks. The Americans have lived in comfort and luxury. I have not yet met an American who says I'm jobless. Yes, we say it very casually. I'm between jobs. I'm between jobs. It's like, okay, I'm between cities. But they take often studies and career and this not so seriously. But American kids, they commit suicide because of heartbreak. For them, what happens? Their artha, which they are made into paramartha, is I should have a relationship. If nobody wants to have me as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, then that means I'm unloved. That means maybe I'm unlovable. And if nobody will ever love me, what is the point of living? So any artha can become a paramartha. And when that happens, the paramartha is lost. Okay, not getting good marks in an exam is not good. But nobody has to end their life for that. Why would somebody end their life? Because that becomes the meaning of life for them. I was in Canada, I met one young man from Sri Lanka. He looked like an Indian, but he was Sri Lankan. And he told me that he was a big cricket fan. And around 2000, between 2000, I think 8, 9 till 2014-15, Sri Lanka got in multiple World Cup finals, T20 and other World Cup finals, they lost. So a third time or fourth time it happened, he said he had his two friends were there. They all three of them were big cricket fans. So one of them, he just committed suicide because Sri Lanka lost the cricket match, the cricket World Cup final. And now the Sri Lankan cricketers committed suicide. So what happened is for them, they are fully into it, but it's another match. You want to win it, but if you lose it, it's not worth ending your life. The point I'm making is, if you make any artha into paramartha, then that can lead to disaster. So the biggest problem with science is not that technology can be misused. That's possible. But the problem is that science itself does not give us any paramartha. And then anybody can make anything as Paramartha. And then that leads to problems. So, radical Islam, for example. Now, what is happening is within that, there is the religious indoctrination. So, I'm going to the other practice point now here. That we consider if there's only philosophy but no practice. So, science also has a lot of theory but no practice. It's just endless speculation. And the speculation, if it leads you to meaninglessness or what you think is meaningful, it goes away from you, then you end your life. Now, on the other hand, if there's only practice without any philosophy, but in general, what happens is this will at best, put it, this can lead to sentimentalism. Sentimentalism means people believe certain things. There are blind rituals, there are superstitions, and people believe so many things. And anybody falls a little sick. Oh, maybe some ghost has possessed them. You hear a door creaking at night. Oh, has a ghost entered into my house? So people become very sentimental. And this kind of sentimentalism, what it gives a bad name to religion. Because, so for example, now this is possible in every religion. In Christianity, there's faith healing. That you go into church and I say that I'm saved by God, and you're a cripple and you become normal. And you become normal for 5 minutes, and after that, you again become a cripple. So it's all a hoax, but people believe those things. So sentimentalism is there's practice without philosophy. Just do this, and these things will happen. But then, at first, it can become fanaticism. It can become extremism. That means I am practicing this, and this is the right thing to do. And if you are not practicing this, then you are not only wrong, you are a bad person. You are an evil person. So when the practice gets absolutized, what is the purpose of the practice that gets lost? And that can lead to disaster. So if the philosophy is not there, then what happens? The practice becomes as it absolutized. So when there is a radicalization of religion, it's not just in Islam. In Christianity also, there are Catholics and Protestants. And for 100 years, they're fighting against each other. And they're fighting over some little small things. Fighting means actually wars happened. And people were killing each other. So, okay, some people say that, okay, when you get baptized, you have to sprinkle some water on your head. Some people say, no, you have to tuck your body in your head. Tuck your head in the water. Some people say, not your head, your whole body has to go into water. If only your head has gone in water, you're not baptized. And so, people can take certain practices and absolutize them. And anybody who doesn't do those practices, that person is considered a terrible person. Wrong person, bad person, terrible person. So, within fanatics, there are two kinds of fanatics. There are exclusivists. Exclusivists are people who say that I have exclusive right to God. My path is the only way to God. If you're not following this, you're not going to God. They'll say, if you're not following this path, you're going to go to hell. They're exclusivists. So exclusivists are in thought. And then there are extremists. Extremists are actually kinder, more compassionate than exclusivists. So exclusivists say, if you don't follow our path, you're going to go to hell. Extremists say, anyway, you're going to go to hell. Why delay it? We will send you there faster. They'll go about killing people. Now, practice without philosophy has led to religion getting a very bad name. So, superstition and sentimentalism is one problem which is widespread, and fanaticism is also a problem which can become widespread. So, what happens? Any religion can take one artha and make it into paramartha. What is the artha? You have to do this ritual in this particular way. If you don't do this ritual in this way, then you are wrong, you are a bad person. In South India, in one temple, it happened that there are two groups of people, and they used to wear tilak in different ways. There was one royal elephant which used to carry the deity across on a procession. And these two groups started quarreling which tilak should be put on the elephant. And they couldn't decide. They went to the local court. From there, it went to High Court, it went to Supreme Court. And the day before the Supreme Court gave the decision, that elephant died. So, my point is, I'm not making fun of any particular religion. These are universal features and there are universal dangers. That what we need is both philosophy and practice. So philosophy, this will lead to my conclusion point now. Philosophy makes whatever we are doing, it makes it sensible. What am I doing? What is the sense behind it? And practice makes it verifiable. That verifiable means not necessarily that I will see God, but I will see a transformation in my life where I will become godly, where I will start becoming less selfish, less controlled by my anarthas. I'll become purer. So when both of these is there, spirituality becomes a very powerful tool. When there is philosophy and practice, it becomes a very powerful tool for inner transformation. So what is this inner transformation? That's what I'll conclude now with the takeaway. The last part is the takeaway. CIT we're discussing. The takeaway is that spirituality brings about inner transformation. Just as science and technology bring about outer transformation. So we can have huge buildings, we can have gadgets, we can have cars, we can have planes. That's outer transformation. Spirituality brings about inner transformation. Now, what is this inner transformation? Let's see, all of us, I talked about, there is this hierarchy of arthas. There are many arthas, but there is one paramarth. So what spirituality does is that what is the actual paramartha that becomes our paramarth. So how are anarthas removed? By giving us something more meaningful in life, whatever we have made excessively important, that gets decreased. So this might seem a little abstract, but suppose somebody has anger issues. Because why? They have an over-controlling nature. Now, when you become spiritual, when you chant the holy names, when you practice bhakti, through the philosophy, we understand that I am not the supreme controller. I don't need to be a supreme controller. There is a supreme controller who's far better than me, who's far wiser. And I need to align with that. So, at a philosophical level, it becomes easier for us to let go of our need for excessive control. And at a practical level, we may find that just by chanting also, our anger will decrease. Our ego will decrease. Why? Because we may seek respect from the world too much, and some people may never respect us. Some people may never value us. But spirituality tells us that we are always valued by God. God will always value us. Each one of us is so special to Krishna that Krishna is present in our hearts as an individual avatar for each one of us, as the Paramatma. So each one of us is not only valued, it's treasured and cherished by God. So whatever is the anartha, that anartha gets removed because we align ourselves with Paramartha. Somebody has a particular talent. So somebody is very good at computers. Somebody is very good at, say, medical student, they're good at surgery. Those are valuable. But what do I do with that valuable thing? How can I use it properly? One of my friends has done his PhD in the post-celebrity lives, psychology PhD, and post-celebrity lives of American basketball players. In America, basketball is very big. It's like IPL in India, they have the NBA, National Basketball Association. So what happens? That these NBA players, if they're good, they make millions and millions of dollars. But then if they have identity, if basketball has become their paramartha, and then they become old, they can't play basketball. See, in most other careers, you start coming to your peak by 45, 50, 55. Between 40 to 60, you got experience, you got wisdom. There is the peak. But in sports, by the time you are 40, you are become like a fossil. Isn't it? So, a sports career, they may be very glamorous, even when they're successful. But after that, many of these people, what happens? What am I to do with my life? I cannot play basketball anymore. Then they have a lot of money and they start drinking, they start engaging in sexuality indiscriminately, and then they take drugs and they sink into depression. So when they may be extremely talented, but when the talent, which is the artha, becomes the paramartha, then that can lead to disaster. Somebody is a surgeon and they're doing a lot of good for surgery, but they get caught in a car accident and they lose their hand. Artha is gone. But if the artha is gone, paramartha still remains. If the artha is the paramartha, then even if somebody is doing good, it will lead to problems afterwards. In the last century, the 10 top authors who won Nobel laureates. Out of this top 10, 7 of them committed suicide. Now, I'm one of my main services is writing, so I was very concerned why these authors commit suicide. So when I read some of their biographies and read something about them, so what happened is that they loved writing. And especially when you do creative work, it is dependent on inspiration. You get some ideas. It's almost like you don't create the ideas, you get the ideas. And so they wrote a book which became an international classic. And after that, when they tried to write other books, they would just not get that inspiration. And then it's a very dark feeling for a talented and successful person to think that my best is behind me. And whatever is in the future is always going to be lesser than my best. And they just couldn't come to terms with the fact that what I am writing now, I built a reputation of writing like this, but all that I'm writing now is poorer than what I was written in the past. And so when writing itself, writing and the quality of the writing and the popularity of the writing, that became their paramartha. Then when they couldn't do that, they just ended their life. So this is a universal principle that if we do not have spirituality in our life, we will make something else our paramartha. And that can lead to a lot of problems. So our spiritual practices will correct that. We'll make sure that there are many things important in our life. Our health is important, our talents are important, our wealth is important. But ultimately, it is Krishna who is important, it's God who is important. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva, tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva, tvameva sarvam. That you are everything. So our mother is important, our father is important, our siblings are important, our friends are important, our wealth is important, our knowledge is important, but none of them are the paramartha. All of them get artha because of paramartha. Our mother's love is our mother's love for us, but it is also Krishna's love expressed through the mother. Our ability is our ability, but our ability is also Krishna's gift to us. So when we understand this, then we won't let any artha become the paramartha for us. That way, we will be able to find that balance between science and technology. Now, science is artha. Science can give us means. So the synergy is science can make things better. Things better means in the outer world, science can make things better. Spirituality can make thoughts better. Spirituality can make our inner world better. Thoughts better means what should I value in life? What is important? See, unfortunately, in today's world, what has happened is that things have become better, but thoughts have become worse. So many people suffer from mental health problems. And yes, there are psychiatrists and many of them help, but people take antidepressant and then that becomes their paramartha. That means I cannot live without an antidepressant. And then they become addicted to that antidepressant. So, yes, if somebody has depression, they can take an antidepressant, but that is not the solution to depression. We have to find some source of meaning in life. So we need artha and paramartha both. Science can never provide us paramartha. So when we understand that both these go together, then each one of us can create. Using science, we can improve the things. Using spirituality, we can improve our thoughts. And if both are together, then we can actually create a better world. So it's science and spirituality. So if we have science, yes or no, and we have spirituality, yes or no. So as I said, science will improve things, spirituality will improve thoughts. Now, if we have science but no spirituality, we're improving things, but we're not improving our thoughts. Then what will become? Actually, will become destructive. We can destroy ourselves, we can destroy others. If we have neither science nor spirituality, that means our thoughts may be bad, but somebody doesn't have any access to technology. They get angry, they try to beat somebody with the punches. They can't really hurt anyone. Somebody takes a machine gun, they are angry, they can kill a million, thousand, 100 people in a few minutes. So if there is neither science nor technology, we'll be ineffective. We may be destructive, but we can't really do harm too much. Now, if we have only spirituality but no science, what will happen is science is the means. So right now, if you're not using the sound system, if you're not having Zoom, if say we're not on social media, many of you may not even come to know about this. So we will be under effective. So if we have both science and spirituality, we can be super effective. So science can give us the means, spirituality can give us the meaning. And both of these together can help us to create a better me, and through a better me, a better world. So let's summarize quickly what I discussed today. Our topic was science and spirituality. So all of you gave some explanations of what science is and what spirituality is. So I talked about CIT. C was what? Concept. So the concept was that science looks for material explanations for material phenomena. That is the methodology of science. Now, with this methodology, science looks for natural explanations or material explanations. And it's a very powerful methodology. By this, what happens? We get understanding of the world around us, and we also get control. So that we can get, so through science, what happens is eventually we get better means. Especially science through technology gives us better means. And that is very valuable. But the problem is that science, it gives us no meaning to life. If there is no God, if there's no ultimate reality, we're just particles of matter moving around. See, science is functionally non-theistic. But from non-theistic, somebody can very easily become atheistic. And then science does not tell us anything about the ultimate meaning of life. And then the result of that is the means are artha. And meaning is actually ultimately in the search for paramartha. What will give actually ultimate meaning to me in my life? So that is insight we discussed is that if and any artha it becomes a paramartha, then that will lead to anartha. So we discussed how this can happen to wealth, this can happen to respect, this can happen to control, but this can also happen to entertainment, this can also happen to weapons, this can happen to gadgets, can get addicted to devices. Any artha can become a paramartha. So now what's happening is science, what it is doing is science removes the idea of paramartha. And technology gives us a lot of artha. That's how that artha can very easily become anartha. So this is a deadly combination that is there. So now what does spirituality do? Talk about spirituality is like science in the sense that there is philosophy and there is practice. Now the practice is meant to give us experience. So in that sense, just like in science, what do we have? We have theory and we have experiment. So now the theory and experiment, what happens? Through the practice, eventually culture comes up. Through experiment, technology comes. Number of people who know the philosophy may be very less, people who practice culture is a lot. But when both are there, that is the best. We discuss about how spirituality can go wrong. Is that if there is only philosophy, it can lead to just speculation. The speculation can become pointless. There's only practice, then it can become they're sentimental. People just follow blindly and they just send superstitious, or it can even become fanatical. My practice is only right practice. This is a paramartha for me. But if both are together, then spirituality becomes sensible and verifiable. Through philosophy, we make sense of what we are doing. Through practice, we can verify what we are doing. We get higher experience. And thus, it can lead to inner transformation. So, what a takeaway for us were two main things. That the first takeaway is that for us, we very much need spiritual, that science, through science, we can improve things. And through spirituality, we can improve thoughts. So, ideally speaking, what we want is both science and spirituality. We want better thoughts and we want better things. So, we discussed these four quadrants, that we have science and we have spirituality. So, it is best that we situate ourselves in quadrant 4 where both are there. That's where we'll be super effective. Otherwise, we may be under effective if we have only spirituality but no science. If we have only science but no spirituality, we'll be destructive. Because what will happen is some artha will make into paramartha. If we have neither, we'll be ineffective. So we discuss how science, it tells us it is the study of matter. It is the study of matter, and spirituality is the study of what matters. So when we have both of them together, by studying matter, we can improve things. By studying what matters, we can improve our thoughts. And that way, each one of us can make our life better and we can help make the world better. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any one question? Anyone have any questions? Yes. Yeah. Prabhu, that the science and spirituality combination is the best thing, like that he told na Prabhu. So here many times it's like that. Science means things what I are finding or whatever doing for the improvement something else. So those are called as Maya. So how can we?
So, can you specific what is called as Maya, like phone or gadgets, or what are you talking about exactly? What?
Prabhu, suppose I am working in atmosphere NER, National Atmospheric Research Laboratory. We are conducting some science experiments based on user requirements, like that ionosphere and different layers in atmosphere. These are our duty to have to do conduct experiment.
Okay.
So sometimes you confuse that these are a Maya. So how we are too much doing these things. So how can we?
Well, what is Maya in that? See, ultimately, Maya is also Krishna's energy.
Yes. Prabhu.
So, Krishna has made this world to function in a particular way. And learning about how the world functions, that itself is not Maya. If you consider Ayurveda, Ayurveda has a huge history of research. In Ayurveda, there are some books like Charak Samhita, Shushruta Samhita, and all this. But beyond that, people do research. So, research itself is not a bad thing at all. If we understand that I am studying the nature which is created by God, so then studying nature can also make you more God conscious. Now, again, we don't want to make nature as artha, we don't want to make it paramartha. I'll study nature and I'll forget God. Not like that. But what the understanding is in our tradition, or broadly in spiritual traditions, that God speaks through nature and God speaks through scripture. So, what God speaks through nature, we study through science. What God speaks through scripture, we study through spirituality. So, nature is also one way of God speaking to us. So you can do it in the God consciousness way. Now, of course, where it could become Maya is we get so caught in these things that we forget Krishna. Or while we are doing these things, we get so caught in the atmosphere around it that that atmosphere affects us and takes us away from Krishna. But otherwise, it's not Maya. It is, the activity itself is not Maya. Prabhupada says that we are not against the knowing spirit of science. We are against their atheism. So as long as we don't make it into the Paramartha, it's not Maya. So Maya basically means what? Rite artham yat pratiyete na pratiyet chatmani. Tam vidyad atmano Maya yatha vaso yatatama. That when we take something as meaningful without any connection with God, then that meaningful thing becomes the supremely meaningful thing. That's when it becomes a problem.
Thank you. Any other questions, sir? Selena?
There's a question there.
Krishna Brahms. Prithvi, with advancement of technology, especially things like AI, like the way we do things are becoming more and more easier. So on the other hand, like there is like saying that like over dependence on them like will decrease our cognitive facilities like thinking and our rational. So like how can like we can use it minimizing our productive and not to get affected mostly like this that the facilities of thinking and the things doesn't go down. So like how to balance it.
So, can over dependence on, say, technology like AI lead to problems? Yes. See, the nature of the material world is that every problem has a solution, and every solution creates a problem. And that is the nature of the world. There are no problems that seem unsolvable, but there are no solutions that are perfect. That is the nature of the world. So, with every problem, every solution will come a problem, and we have to learn resources to deal with that problem. So, can can any technology lead to problems? Of course, yes. So, using phones, it can make us more distracted. Social media can make us more distracted. It can also make us more connected. Now, it depends on how we use it. So, now for similarly with respect to AI, should we regulate using it? There are two different things. That we use technology as a resource for our intelligence. Artificial intelligence, if it becomes a resource for our intelligence, then it is valuable. That means I am doing the thinking, I use it for information, for guiding my analysis, for editing or whatever. Hmm? But the problem is, instead of it being a resource for our intelligence, we outsource our intelligence there. That can become deadly. So the problem is artificial intelligence is a bit of a problem, but the big problem is artificial intelligence and natural stupidity. That's a deadly combination. So this boy who committed suicide, what happened was he outsourced his whole life to AI. So now that means that is AI enhancing my ability or reducing my ability? So can I do certain things without technology also, and do I do them? So if I do it, if I have to do some simple writing, I proofread it myself or do I visually give it to AI? If I do some simple calculation, do I need AI if I'm doing it? Can I do it myself? So we should also be able to be evaluating whether this is increasing my ability or decreasing my ability. So it should be an extension. It should not be a replacement. And that caution we have to take. Now each thing will bring a challenges. So for example, now each passing generation, the attention span of kids has decreased. But paradoxically, the IQ of kids seems to be increasing. The kind of games that kids, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kids play, they're very complicated games. There's so many moving pieces. It's if say a person, I'm 50 roundabout almost. If I have a nephew who is settled in my brother's son settled in America, he was playing some game and he wanted me to play with him. So I had to spend some good amount, at least 5-10 minutes to understand what the game is. I didn't have time to play, but I just still observing. The thing is that as far as IQ level is concerned, with each generation the IQ level seems to be increasing. Nowadays, if you see most movies, many of the movies have much more complicated plot lines. And this character was here and this character was here, and sometimes you have what do you say, that you have multiple series of movies, and what happened in the previous movie you have to remember to understand this movie also. So now you can say people are so lost in that they forget the world and they remember the movie characters. That is true, but the point is people do. So it's not, nothing can completely, in this world nothing is a complete curse and nothing is a complete blessing. So when I say IQ is increasing, what it means is that people's capacity to process complex stimuli has increased. Complex stimuli, not necessarily complex concepts, but complex stimuli. That's why when you say people are distracted through technology, what happens is they're getting so many dazzling stimuli that real life doesn't hold their attention. So, but so many dazzling stimuli come in through technology and people can process it. So, in that sense, the capacity to process complexity has increased. So, that way, technology, that way, you can say IQ has increased. Now, you can say IQ has increased, but EQ has decreased. And that's also true. And SQ has practically become zero only. So, you could argue that the problems are bigger than the blessings. That's an argument, is a separate issue. Our topic was not that today. Our topic today was not technology, blessing, or curse. Our topic was science and spirituality. So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. So I have written a few books. So this is Gita for the CEO. Like I talked about means and meaning. So the Bhagavad Gita helps us not only to find the ultimate meaning in life, but also helps us to understand what means we have and to use them better. So Arjuna was an archer and he was able to use his archery wisely in the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is presented as a conversation between two characters, both in the corporate world, and 10 principles from the Gita that I can apply in our daily life are given. And the kind of diagrams and concepts that I was drawing, I have explained in this book. So this is published by HarperCollins. It's a national bestseller in India. And it's also distributed across the world. And it is not just for CEOs. Ultimately, everybody is meant to be a CEO of their own life. This is prayers inspired by Bhagavad Gita. This is more for developing our spiritual side. Each page has one prayer inspired by one verse from the Gita. And there are beautiful pictures of deities of Krishna. There are prayers for, there's a poetic translation of the verse so that we can feel a more emotional connect with the verse. There's a spiritual affirmation, which can be a summary of the prayer which you can carry with us. And there are prayers for various occasions when we feel lonely or misunderstood, prayers when we feel lost or directionless, prayers when our desires are becoming wild and uncontrollable, prayers when we feel discouraged and hopeless, prayers when we feel spiritually disconnected from the Lord and our bhakti becomes dry. And then this is my first Telugu book. This is Wisdom from Ramayana on life and relationships. So here I've taken about 18 to 20 incidents from the Ramayana and drawn life lessons from them. So why did Sugriva and Vali, who were the best of friends, become enemies? How misunderstandings occur and grow, or how did Kai become due to such a bad thing? How was she manipulated by Mantara? How can we protect ourselves from getting manipulated? Or when so many people gave Ravan good advice, why would he not listen to good advice? How would he not holding on to Sita? So are some people innately bad? Can people be changed? So there are practical aspects about human life, human behavior. You can learn many lessons from this book on the Ramayana. So all these 3 books are available. If any of you want, I'll be here for some time to answer any further questions or to sign the books. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
So let us thank His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu by loudly chanting one time Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So those who wants to take the book, you can purchase the book. The Prabhu will personally sign the book with your name, and also Prabhu will give a signature also. So please, thank you for joining us. And now we are going to have the lunch. So for all the new students of Temple Shreyas, for the senior devotees, so snacks are arranged at Nandagram.
Okay, sir. Lunch will be after the evening class. Okay. Yeah. So thank you everyone. So please take your snacks.